It's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. The talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me at benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcast because People of Distinction is a nationally and internationally syndicated show because of listeners like you. Our shows are available across all major podcast distributors as well as YouTube. And if you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. We appreciate the support. Continue to like and follow and sit back and strap in because on the line with us today, we have the impressive Joyce Yvette Davis. And we're going to be discussing her amazing book, The Lebensborn Experiment, Book 1, World War II. Now, it's available for purchase through Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, all the regular online book resellers. But if you want to gather everything that Joyce has in store, and I mean everything because, listen to me when I tell you, Joyce has a lot in store, people. You see right there in the title. If there's a book 1, well, it's probably safe to assume that there's a book 2. Maybe 3, 4, 5, and who knows how long it goes. Well, I'll tell you this much. There is a book 2 that's already been created. That one is called The Lebensborn Alliance. But also, there's a book 3. Now, book 3 is still in creation, so you're not able to purchase it just yet. But you're going to want to check back in frequently. That one is going to be entitled The Lebensborn Conspiracy. All 3 of these magnificent books will be available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the places that I've mentioned already. But check out her personal site, Joyce Davis, onceuponastory.com. There, as I mentioned, you're going to find more information on her, more information on these fantastic books, find hyperlinks set up to take you to the purchasing pages, and everything in between. Once again, that's Joyce Davis, onceuponastory.com. And I do want to take this opportunity quickly and point out the fact that Joyce was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by one of the best publishing firms in the business. People you already know, I'm talking about Citi of Books. So if you're a writer out there, you've gone through your process and now you need help moving the book you just developed. Contact Citi of Books because this is exactly what they specialize in. You're going to want to head on over to citiofbooks.com and gather all the ways that their fantastic team is going to help you do just that. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Joyce here with us on the line today. People, this is a remarkable book. I mean, listen to me when I tell you, this is a nonstop page turner, and you're not going to be able to put it down. Now, you can take my word for it. You could take Joyce's word for it once we get her here on the line, or you could simply do some research and you can see what others are saying about it because I'm telling you, this book is riveting. Yeah, it's a fictional narrative, but here's the kicker. This is a historical fictional. So yeah, loosely embellished, right, to heighten entertainment, but it's based on actual events. See, because this book is going to shed light on an already dark time in our past. And when you start to read it, you start to figure out and learn a little bit more about the Lebensborn experiments. It's going to make that part of history even darker. You see, because the Lebensborn experiments were actually things that happened. It follows the Nazi regime as they conducted experiments on people in attempts to create an Aryan race. As if the Nazis weren't bad enough, now they were performing all of these experiments to try to create this pure Aryan race. This book is incredible, and it's even more astounding that it's based upon true events. Remember, historical fiction, so a lot of it's been embellished, but this is an absolutely just heart-racing story that you are going to just become engulfed in. And I can sit here and I can talk it up for hours. I'm telling you, I am at the edge of my seat already, and we haven't even begun. Sit back, strap in, and get ready because Joyce is about to give us a thriller, okay? Joyce, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, and thank you.
Listen, it is a pleasure to have you here, Joyce. your book is remarkable, and I'll admit, I know I admitted it to you before on the pre-screening call, but I'm going to admit it here for everyone. I didn't even realize that this was happening. I mean, knowing, Adolf Hitler and the Nazis and that whole regime, I wish I could say that this was a surprise that they were experimenting on people in this way, but this was news to me. So as my team and I were conducting research in preparation for this interview, I was absolutely taken aback and just astounded at the things that were happening. And again, as I mentioned in my opening, it puts a very dark part of history in an even darker place, right? As if we could go even darker than that. This is incredible. Thank you for writing the book. Thank you even more for being here to discuss it. Before we go into this wonderful book, Joyce, tell us more about yourself and your background.
I was born in Detroit, Michigan, in March 1959, and I am the youngest girl of 7 children. So when I was around 13 years old, we moved to Southern California, and I took some creative writing classes in the 8th grade, and I fell in love with reading books. Fell in love with Jane Austen. Everybody loves Jane Austen, but I fell in love with all those kind of romantic stories. Rom-coms, what they call them today. And so I just love to read. I read Man-Child in the Promised Land, Richard Wright, so I was just reading. And so I started to want to write. Yeah. And I decided to go into the communication arts field. So I got my bachelor's degree from Cal Poly University in Pomona, and then I worked for this information publishing company that AT&T, it became AT&T, as a quality control editor. So I've been pretty much in that field. Right now, I'm actually editing a book of another author right now. So I'm retired from that because when they took over, how it goes, people get laid off and all that. Yeah. So now and that's when I decided to finish, because I had actually started writing the story, back in my mid-20s. But since I was a single mom, raising my son and, working, it was very hard for me to find the time. By the time the weekend came, I was too tired to do anything, And so it was very hard for me to get into the mood of writing, Yeah. And so once that happened, once I did get laid off, I said, I'm gonna finish writing my book. That's what I'm gonna do. That's what I'm gonna do. So and so that's what I did. I did the Lisbon experiment, and then a couple of years after that, I did the Lisbon Alliance. It has taken me quite a while to write the book, because even though my son has grown up and he's married and has a family of his own, I was taking care of my mom, who just died in August.
I'm so sorry.
She was 97, and so I was her caregiver, and so she had a lot of problems. So I couldn't just focus on writing, and being a caregiver. I understand why, it costs so much money to put your parents into these assisted living, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So I didn't have the, concentration you know, to do that. And as you get older, then your stamina and your energy, it kind of depletes a little bit.
Yeah.
And so your focus, you know, you can't, you know, when you're young, you can do a lot of stuff, you know, but when you get older, it kind of wanes a little bit. So, yeah, so that's pretty much my background. I'm very proud that, you know, I was able to raise my son. He has his master's degree in finance, and, you know, he owns his own home, and, you know, all of that. So I think I did a good job. I think I did a good job.
Well, listen, it sounds.
I don't have to take care of him. Now he you know, he can take care of me. So when you get to that point where your kids can help you out, then you know you've done a good job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, it sounds like you've done an amazing job. Nothing but continued success to you and your loved ones. And listen, Joyce, I got to know about this book, and I want to start off with inspiration, because it is something that is so unique. And like I mentioned, something that I was just unaware of. Now, you started off by talking about how you were an avid reader. So, okay, you're already in that state of mind, transitioning to writing. There's not that much, you know, it's not very far-fetched. I'm connecting the dots. I'm sticking with you there. But when you were talking about being an avid reader, you were talking about loving, you know, Jane Austen and these quote-unquote rom-coms. Well, Joyce, hey, I got news for you. The Lebensborn experiment is anything but. I mean, there's nothing romantic and there is nothing comedic about this. So connect the dots for us. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, I watched a documentary about the 754th Tank Battalion. And that was the battalion that Jackie Robinson was in for a time. Mm. And he was discharged for an incident where he was sitting on the bus with his wife, and they thought he was white. And, you know, they asked him to get off, and, you know, how that goes. Mm-hmm. And so I was watching that story on PBS, and I thought, oh, and I started to just look it up, do a little research on my own, and then I started to say, well, what if I write a fictional story about the 751st, 61st Tank Battalion? And it was a process of, what if then he gets captured by the Nazis? What if they do experiments on him? So it was that kind of process going through my head that made me think about writing the story. And once I started to do research and found out about the Lissenborn and the experiments they did, and the Lissenborn was actually, it started off as as kind of like nursing homes for women with their children, where they went to have their babies. And then it changed into how the Nazis would use these Lissenborn homes to, once they kidnapped these children, they would bring them to these homes to be Germanized. So once I started to just delve deeper into it, and then there was a PBS on actual Lissenborn children that they did interviews with who were in these Lissenborn homes. So, you know, it was just a process of thinking about what I could write. And the thing about it is, I didn't really like science fiction either. So because I had read some science fiction, and it was always so weird. I mean, because they would just make up whole worlds, you know, and all the names would be these funny names and everything. And I just didn't get into science fiction. The science fiction back then is kind of different than the science fiction now.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, and so that's how the process got started, of just me saying what if, and just me looking at viewing something and then taking it from there and being interested in it, and then taking it to the next level, and then, you know, just creating these characters and writing the book.
Love that.
So that was basically it.
Love that. Well, listen, Joyce, without further ado, let's take it away here. The Lebensborn Experiment, Book 1. Tell us a little bit more about this fantastic narrative.
It starts during the final days of the war, and where you have the Sergeant Kapp Johnson. He got caught. He's being held a prisoner in this castle, this kind of like medieval castle in the Black Forest, and him and his stepbrother is there, his younger brother. You don't realize this is his younger brother until, you know, you read on in the chapter. Then you find out, oh, that's his younger brother. And so, yeah, they get captured, and this Colonel Otto Strass, he wants to move up the ranks. You know, he wants Hitler's recognition, and so he's invited Hitler to come and watch the execution of these two black soldiers and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is Hitler doesn't show up because, you know, this is towards the end of the war, and so Hitler eventually has committed suicide, and he finds out about it, but he still wants to, you know, execute these men, but he's going to let the doctor who invented the serum, you know, do experiments on him. But at the same time, it's also about this 10-year-old child named Polish boy named Adok, who was kidnapped, and he was sent to one of these Lebensborn homes.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's given the serum that would allow him to become immortal, to live, you know, forever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the book begins. And if you don't mind, I would like to kind of just read like the first part of the story.
Yes, please.
This is in Germany, April 28th, 1945. It wouldn't be long now before the boy was dead. In agony, the boy screamed and screamed until his throat was raw and bleeding, until his screams no longer sounded like that of a 10-year-old child, but the squealing of a small, wounded animal caught in the snare of a hunter's trap. The snare was the cold still of an operating table where his ghostly white, naked flesh lay bound. Somewhere in the Black Forest of Germany, high in a dingy tower of a medieval castle, his captors anciently awaited his death. The hunters were members of the boy's own race, prowling the earth like a pack of ravenous pit bulls, while waging war with the rest of the human race for total domination of the world. Death for the boy stretched on for hours until finally it took him at midnight. So that's the beginning of the story. It starts off with the Polish boy and the experiment that was done on him, and then it goes into, you find out that the black soldiers were captured, and Hitler commits suicide, and all of this turmoil goes on. But what happens is that the doctor mistakenly gives Kapp the serum that he gave the boy. in the chaos that is ensuing. So I won't tell you everything because I want people to read the book. But in the chaos that ensues, the doctor mistakenly gives Kapp the serum. And how the serum works, it works according to your own body's metabolism. So it might take one person, like, what happens is once you get the serum, you actually die. But then you come back to life. How long it takes you to come back to life depends on your body, your metabolism. So the doctor kind of explains that it roughly takes someone about 3 days, and he likens that to the resurrection of Jesus Christ, to die and come back to life. And so he gives Kapp this serum. So logically, Kapp is supposed to be dead for 3 days. Mm-hmm. But no. Because of Kapp's metabolism, he used to play football in college. Because of Kapp's metabolism, he comes back in about 5 minutes. He's resurrected in about 5 minutes. And he, kills all of the soldiers that's trying to capture him again. And he falls out. He runs and he jumps out of the tower window. And he starts running through the black forest, through the forest. And then that's when his mind remembers that. First, he doesn't understand where he is, but then his mind goes back. And then he remembers his brother is still in the tower. And then he goes back to get his brother. Mm. So that's basically chapter 1 of the story.
Joyce, thank you very much for sharing that. And I love it because, a great cliffhanger, right? A great way to just start us off on this journey. But it also showcases how wonderful of a writer you are and the way you string words together. People, I'm telling you, this is going to be something that flows, something you're not going to want to put down, something you're not going to be able to put down. Remember, again, it's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble. Check out her personal website to gather everything, and that's Joyce Davis, onceuponastory.com. This book, The Lebensborn Experiment, Book 1. Check out the Lebensborn Alliance, Book 2. But check back in frequently for the Lebensborn Conspiracy, Book 3, which is still in creation, but I promise you, it's going to be just as riveting. As we start to close out of here, Joyce, please listen, this is such a wonderful topic point to discuss. There's a lot of different avenues that we can go down, and I could sit here and listen, we can turn this into a 3-hour interview like that, right? I mean, something very easily that we can do. But I want to ask, and I know that this is a fictional narrative, okay? So if I'm going too far down this rabbit hole and trying to push for this connection, simply let me know. And if we want to stay more surface level, it's not a problem whatsoever. But I'm curious, how did you ensure that your book is not only a historical account, but also a meaningful exploration of the human resilience, right, or moral ambiguity in such dire circumstances? Because here's the thing. This is only, unfortunately, one account of human beings being placed in such extreme circumstances. If we look through the course of history, there have been a number of times where, experiments have been done on people, whether with their knowledge or without, or people just placed in very extreme hardships. And if there's one thing that can be said about humans, about the human spirit, is we are incredibly resilient. Well, I want to hear it from you when it comes to this book. Is there a connection that can be formed and a message that can be received regarding that?
That's an interesting question. because you don't know how resilient you can be until something happens.
Yeah.
For instance, when I was in college, I went to visit one of my girlfriends in Memphis, and it was raining one day. She was driving, and it was raining one day, and the car skidded off the road, and she just panicked. She screamed. I grabbed hold of the wheel, and we were able to stop. I did that without even thinking.
Yeah.
And nobody would have told me that I was going to be able to do that. It was just the spur of the moment. I mean, heroes are not born. They're made.
Mm-hmm.
They're made because of the circumstances that they're in. And that's how it is when you're talking about people being resilient. You don't know that you're going to be able to withstand or do the things that you need to do until you're in that situation. And so, that happened. And it was one time when I was living in LA. I was still in high school, and there was next door, there was this family whose son had gotten out of prison, and you could understand why he went to prison in the first place, because he was a mess. Mm-hmm. And there was some things going on next door, and all of a sudden I heard a scream, and I happened to be in the dining room, and I heard a scream, and I ran right out of the house to see what was going on. Now, that was the stupidest thing I could have ever done, because who knows what was going on outside. But I heard the scream, and I just ran out. I said, oh, my God, what's going on? This person needs help. And I didn't even think about it. I just ran out to and so that was the first time. And then the second time was with my girlfriend in the car. And she was so upset. She couldn't drive. We had to sit there for like 10, 15 minutes just for her to get her bearings, together. But I was so calm, and I said, okay, just wait here. I'm not going to say her name because, I haven't had permission to say anything. Right. But I told her, I said, just wait here. Just wait a second. And then when you get ready, then we can go. Because I didn't have my driver's license at that time, so I couldn't drive. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know that I was going to do that. I didn't know that I was going to be that calm. I was calm. She was a mess. And I didn't know that it was gonna be like that, because it could have been a very serious accident, and the fact that I remained calm, but it just shows you that heroes are not born, they're just made. They just come about when a circumstance, somehow you get I don't know what it is. I mean, because I didn't even think about it. I just acted. Yeah. I just reacted to the situation. It wasn't something that I thought. And I said, oh, I'm going to grab the steering wheel and steer her, in the right direction. I had no thought of that. I just did it. Mm-hmm. I just reacted to the situation. And that's the human spirit. People rise to the occasion. They rise to the moment. And you never know, the shyest person or the smallest person can end up being the person that reacts to something and saving someone else's life, or doing something that no one else has done before. And they didn't know they had it in them, but they just reacted to it. And that's the human resilience. It's that there are people who are going to step up to the plate, and they're going to just do things that's going to help other people.
People, I'm telling you, there is so much left. We've barely scratched the surface, okay? For the sake of today's interview, I'm going to put the onus on you. The responsibility now falls on you. Again, it's called the Lebensborn Experiment. Remember, there's a book 1, there's a book 2, and there's a book 3 on the horizon. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but most importantly, Joyce Davis, onceuponastory.com. Head on over there today, pick up copies, and just get lost in it, man. Remember, this is something wildly entertaining, but it also is almost eerie in a way because it's based loosely upon true events. Head on over there, pick up your copies. While you're at it, the holidays are right around the corner. Pick up copies for others around you because this is something for the next book club. This is one you're going to want to have a discussion about, okay? And you got Joyce Yvette Davis to thank for it all. Head on over there, figure out what I'm talking about. Joyce, this has been an absolute pleasure. Such an honor. Thank you for the wonderful discussion. Thank you for creating this magnificent book. And most importantly, thank you for being a guest.